Hi Paul, it's Rob over at the house. I just wanted to shoot a quick video showing you the layout of the living room, paneling and whatnot. I've started off with this existing wall because that's already framed. However, the existing framing is a little bit further back than the paneling we're going to be putting on here because the plaster and lath was much thicker, and we're only going to be using a 1/2 inch MDF backer panel to sit all the molding pieces on top of. So I started a 1/2 inch back from here and took that line right across, measuring the same distance off the studs to find where a 1/2 inch back sat, which put us at this line here, which is basically the back edge of the plywood. So the new we'll strap out these existing 2x4s with some new 2x4s so that we have a nice straight wall, straight and in line with the spot we need to be at the door frame, and then it'll also be square. The whole room will be squared off of that. So once we have this line, I shot a chalk line I shot a square laser across the room and put a chalk line there, which basically gives us a square wall over to here, to that Sharpie mark here with the screw in it, and then I shot a square line off of that to take us back across this wall, the front wall, and that brings us across here. You can see the chalk line over to here, and then I factored in, starting over here at the doorway, we have to be back enough for the casing, which is 3.5, plus the back band, which adds another 1/2 inch, plus a 2.5 inch strip of the vertical trim piece, plus the 1/2 inch paneling to the front of the framing. So that's the front of the framing. I shot that square line, that chalk line across the room, which took us over to here, which means that the framing here will be across here and then across here. So we're going to fur out this existing bulkhead space up to that line, or just as far to the corner of this duct as we need to, so we can create this bulkhead here and return with paneling on this one face. Then we'll leave a void, and then we'll pick up the wall in line with the existing wall here, out to that chalk line across, and have the paneling set up on here. And then again, we'll have a void, and then we'll take this line across here to basically in line with this, because that's as far over as it needs to be. Or we'll try and go symmetrically if we have to. Perhaps cheat this a little bit one way or the other just to match what's there, because I think that ductwork comes out a little bit further than this one, and I'd like the room to be symmetrical. So in any case, we've got the room squared off those chalk lines. The next thing I did was I figured out off of the new window locations, which as you can see, I've got marked out on the wall in Sharpie. I marked it out partly for the purposes of mapping out the paneling, but also the masons are coming to resize this opening, so I've given them all the measurement sizes. This is the edge of the finished brick, and this line here is the actual finished corner of the brick mold. Off of that, I did all the math to figure out minus the thickness of the brick mold, minus the thickness of the frame, yada, 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 which took me down to the floor and gave me this rail, which is going to sit on a small jamb extension, which is going to sit on the actual window frame because it's an 1.25 inch thick frame. So with that being said, we're going to have our first piece here, from here to here, 2.5 inches. And then the same thing comes down over here, our 1.25 inch frame with a 1/4 inch setback for the jamb extension with a 1/4 inch setback for the trim. That piece and that piece are set based on the physical window position, which is centered between that framed wall and that framed wall. And then between those 2 points, I divided the space equally and found that we have 3 panels with evenly spaced 2.5 inch pieces, which the panels are going to be 12 and 9/16 within a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch or so, just depending on how things actually fall with final framing. But it should be about 12 and 9/16, which is about 12.5 inches of physical panel space in between the 2.5 inch vertical rails. Now again, that's not including the bit of panel molding that's going to go around that, so you won't actually see 12 and 9/16. You'll actually see 12 and 9/16 minus the thickness of each of those pieces on either side, and then when we're doing the horizontal pieces, it'll be whatever the height of the panel is minus the thickness of those little trim pieces. So in either case, in between the window, or underneath the window I should say, there's going to be 3 panels at 12 and 9/16, and then on both sides, because it's centered, I was able to get 4 panels of 13 and 7/16. And again, 4 panels of 13 and 7/16, and that works out perfectly evenly. I measure my way across and everything lines up perfectly. Then we turn the corner with the detail where there's a piece meeting another piece. We start going this way. We know the existing corner of this window because this window isn't moving. So I took that line down and found the first piece of trim here. And then I divided that space up over 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, which gives us 4 panels at 12 and 7/8 from the corner of the wall to the edge of this window. And then underneath the window, again, based on the 2 existing corners of the window, we'll have 4 panels of 13 and 3/4. So the panels will get a little bit wider underneath the window. However, they also will be squished a bit because the horizontal panels will line up around the room governed by the top of the windows, not withstanding what's happening underneath here. So if you look at Amparo's drawings, you'll see that there's a 1 short panel underneath the window. So you're not going to really notice that these panels are a little bit wider and a little more squished, especially once you put a nice new valance or something or curtains and have some window finishings over here. But you're going to go from 12 and 7/8 panels to 13 and 3/4 panels. And then on this side, from this trim piece right here to the trim piece on the corner, we're going to have 3 panels of 13 and 5/8. So 13 and 5/8, 13 and 3/4, and 12 and 7/8 in groupings of panels. That takes us across to here, where we have basically the width of the bulkhead divided up into a single panel. Then there's the bookcase. Then we're going to have this section here divided up over however many panels. I think it was 4 panels. And again, I just haven't marked it out because there's no need to at this moment, because we're not going to be setting up. It didn't affect anything at the moment, but I just want to try and get this laid out because when we're putting our new studs, I want to make sure that we have a stud behind a central panel where we have a piece of mullion, so that way when we bring a 4x8 sheet of MDF, 1/2 inch MDF across, we can cut it off underneath one of these trim pieces and hide that seam so that we don't have an full 8-foot piece ending in the middle of nowhere. We cut it back to the right size so it's hidden underneath one of these little 2.5 inch pieces of trim. Finally, coming over to this wall, we have 7 equal panels from the corner of the wall to the edge of the door, 7 equal panels of 14 and 1/4. And again, so each wall is independent of the other just based on the spacing of what's on the wall. Here we have a door which has 1 full vertical piece here, and then the wall's divided up evenly. Here we have from here to the window, which is going to be divided up evenly between the window, and then from the window to the corner. Same thing here, corner to the window, within the window, and then the window to the other corner, and so on and so forth. So that's how we got the measurements we got, and that way, again, we can ensure that we have a stud where we need to. In this case, we're going to be adding a stud right over here, probably on the flat, so that it gives us a lot of wiggle room. When we run a 4x8 sheet of MDF across, we can end it right here, which will fall nicely underneath the trim piece. So that's basically the layout of the room. So you can see that everything's going to be nice and mostly symmetrical, or everything's going to be nice and even and symmetrical per wall. The only thing is you're going to see minor differences in sections of the wall. So like I said, there'll be groupings of 4 panels at one size, 3 panels at another size, and then another 4 panels of another size. Here we have 4 panels of one size, 4 panels of one size, and 3 panels of another size. So that's the only variance you're going to see, and they're frankly only within about 3/4 of an inch on this wall, particularly in size from one another. So it's not going to be a drastic difference. It's nothing that you're probably going to notice with your naked eye unless you're looking for it. But the important thing is the chalk lines are nice and square to the whole room, so that everything is going to be paralleled off of that, and you'll have a nice even square faced room with even paneling when everything's all nice and straight, and you'll have a great looking room when it's all done. Thanks so much.